Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of In the Prog Seed. Look at the cast we've got assembled here today. We've got Steve Feigenbaum from Wayside Music, Cuneiform Records. We've got Luis Nasser, bassist of Sonus Umbra, and we've got Ken Golden from the Laser's Edge Sensory. Welcome, gentlemen. We got a pretty cool program today. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Great.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Oh, thank you for coming. Today is all about our favorite non-English speaking prog albums, or non-English sung prog albums, I should say.
Wait a minute, Pete. Steve told me we were having the best beard contest tonight.
Oh yeah, so I threw you a curveball. Sorry.
All right, I'm gonna wing it. I'll wing it.
Luis wins.
Well, if that's
Luis
the case, I
wins.
guess I automatically lose, right? Because
Yes.
I figure you were moderating. All right.
It depends on how you interpret beard.
All right. I'm sorry to interrupt.
that's all right. That's all right.
I'll wing it.
So, when you're talking prog rock, whether it's the old classic stuff from the 70s or even the more modern stuff, we've had some great prog over the years from every country on this globe for the most part. And there's a lot of people who kind of have an issue with music, specifically prog rock, like we're talking about now, that is sung in the native language of the band where it's originated from. But however, there are a lot of really great albums where if you just kind of like close your eyes and just stop and just listen, it doesn't really matter what language they're singing in. The albums are great, the music's great, and the vocals are great. So what I've asked everybody to do is to pick out 5 albums, old or new, that are from a band from another country other than North America that sing in their native language that we think you guys should really go check out and give it a try. This is really geared towards the folks who have a hard time with non-English lyrics or vocals.
The one advantage to non-English lyrics is you don't understand how lame the lyrics are.
Exactly, right? Because you just say, all right, whatever. I have no clue what they're saying.
Or whatever. It's like,
great.
well, no, I sound, if it's Italian or French, it sounds profound.
Whatever it's about. Yep. So we've each picked 5. We're gonna have everybody start with their number 5. I don't know. I don't think it really matters where they're ranked, but we're gonna go Ken, Lewis, Steve, myself, and then we'll keep going around till we get to number 1. So Ken, kick us off.
And I promise this time I'll do 5 and not 6.
Okay. I'm gonna keep track of you, Ken. I'm gonna keep track very close.
And I gotta say, Pete, when we talked about this really wasn't that easy.
It wasn't. I agree with you 100%.
Because the thing is, the good ones, they're not good, they're great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of top tier. So for me, it was very hard to come up with 5 because I started with like around 8, and then you start whittling away, and the ones you're whittling away, you're like, man, these are great albums.
These are great albums.
And I also, the other thing, I wanted to, unlike Luis is going to give us 5 Mexican albums, I wanted to give a broader array, from other parts of the world, and it still be a little. You'll see, it's my 5 are skewed. So I'm going to start off with number 5 for me. Might be a little controversial, and this is from Spain, Coto and Pel.
Oh.
And this came out in 1978, and I actually released it on CD in 1991. It's pretty obscure. The Spanish prog scene kind of mirrored the Italian scene in some ways, but it started later. Everything kind of started around 75, 76.
Well, you know why it started later? Because in 1975, when I was in the 12th grade of high school, I remember not knowing what it meant, but that Franco died.
Yeah.
And so, and he had a iron grip on the country and censorship and blah, blah, blah. So that's why it's later.
Yeah. So Holocaust, Coto and Pel band, they were like a one and done band. They put the album out in 78. It's very much influenced by King Crimson. And yes, it's kind of like a mashup. You've got that sort of dissonance of Crimson and that symphonic element of Yes. A lot of Melotron, a lot of mini Moog solos. The bass player kind of sounds like he's playing a Rick. long instrumental passages, but the vocals are sung. They were from Catalan region, so it's really nice. The acoustic parts that come in, they have this sort of like Mediterranean feel to it. The only thing that I would think that would stop it, I'm sorry, that's kind of holding it back from being higher than it is the drumming is a little lackluster. Maybe the drumming could be a little better, but overall, for me, trying to find something that was off the beaten path, Code and Pell, me as a winner. Not too many people know it, but I think it's a great one.
So I'm assuming that's like long out of print on CD, Ken?
Yeah, we only did one run of it. Wasn't one of our best sellers. And,
It's I mean, Ken, I mean, you know, it's an obscure one now. When you picked it, I mean, I kind of know the Spanish scene. That's a really overlooked record.
Yeah, it really is.
It really is. I mean, it's like Ken and I were friends when he did it. It was like, I don't know this one. I never heard of it. I never, and it's just sort of like, yeah. And how did you find them in the first? Did you just buy it at a record show or something like that? Because you knew about it and you pursued it.
Somebody played it for me. Maybe some other collector played it for me. And, because everybody knows the Spanish bands like Gotique.
Yeah.
That's Gotique didn't make the list because it's instrumental.
Right.
So, but there were some very good. Most of the Spanish bands were on the Movie Play label.
Yes.
And these guys were not on Movie Play. It was originally released on the Nevada label. This is actually the reissue on Dial Discos. These are the people I dealt with. Oh, they were lame to deal with, but they really were. But yeah, it's obscure, but for me, it's a great record.
Yeah, I think it's a very good record, and I think it kind of. Excuse me.
It's a Prog album.
Oh, it's a Prog. Oh, it's a
you hear
Prog
the Crimson.
Album.
You hear Yes. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's.
And I mean this it has a certain. Saying it's a little bit primitive maybe sounds like a diss, and I don't mean it that way. But it's a little bit primitive and a little bit simple, but it's also very strong because they kind of focus on their strengths.
Yeah.
And they're not, I don't think any of them are really like the greatest individual players in the world, but the overall feel is a real good one. It's
kind of organic. It's all these guys playing together. None of them like blow you away, blow your mind. But they're all fine. They're all good enough. They're all
fine. No one is like, oh my God, he's going to be famous because he's going to go on and do other things because he's so great. It's like, I don't think, did any of them do anything
Robert
else?
Fripp in the band, right?
No Robert Fripp in the band.
No, but you'll definitely you listen to it, you'll hear King Crimson.
I want to hear this.
Oh, yeah.
I've never heard it. I would like to hear it.
It's a very good record. It's a
What
very
era
good
of
record.
King Crimson are we talking?
74.
Early King Crimson?
No,
Or
The John Wetton era.
Okay.
the John Wetton period. 73, 74.
Got my attention there.
You'd like it.
It's a good.
Everybody would like
It's a real solid, and it's just and it's like I said. I'm kind of amazed that Ken knew about it. I mean, it was an obscure record in Spain, and it was a complete unknown record outside of Spain, really, and like you said, you reissued it and people liked it, but you only did the one pressing because there just wasn't enough interest.
Yeah, we sold out of it, and that was it.
You made your 1,000 or 1,500, and then that was it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just like, well, this isn't, there's not another 500 people who want it.
I think we made 1,500 and probably 500 went to Japan. I don't remember.
Right.
Yeah. And well, anyway, it's obscure. And from my list of 5, it's going to be the most obscure. But, and obviously, because, that's why my number 5 is going to be, but I think it's a wonderful album.
Cool. I'm going to seek that out. Lewis, what do you got?
All right. Well, this is a band that I first saw, of all places, at a club in Chicago before they played the Near Fest. And George Lemmy would probably know this place. I think they closed it down, but it's called the Abbey Pub. the sort of pub that even lets bands like Sonus Umbra play. So it's nothing special about it. And they were opening for a band that I think Steve knows very well, Cheer Accident. I'd never heard that name. I didn't know who they were. I was new to Chicago. These guys opened up. They are from Japan, Koenji Hiake.
Oh,
And this is Anger Shispa. Now, I know how much Pete loves Magma, so I thought I would just, raise the ante by delivering a record that is clearly influenced by that sort of style, but yet they do a completely different verbiage. And this record
I'll be sure to avoid this one then.
That's absolutely. I think you would do.
are you Pete? Are you famous for not liking Magma?
Oh yeah,
apparently
I
so.
didn't know that. Okay.
He made a point one day of saying that he had bought all the records, really tried them, and had to get rid of them.
Every one of them.
I thought that was remarkable because for me, one of the most amazing bands I've ever seen live is Magma. And you were there at that Near Fest with me when I
left halfway through it. I couldn't.
I know. So, but these guys are not Magma. They're different. Koenji Hiake. They have it's a 5-piece. And they are really, really incredible. I would highly recommend people. It's on a label. Well, my copy is on Skin Graft Records.
Right, out of Chicago. I think.
Yeah, and these guys, they came out with a piece of paper and they would read, "Thank you, we from Japan." Next song, and they would go into it.
So do you know Luis? Because I actually know. Do you know Tatsuya Yoshida? The drummer and who's the leader? He's been around for a very long time, and he's always been very Magma related. In fact, I first heard of Tatsuya with his band Ruins, which was a drums and bass duo with singing. And the first record of theirs that was released in the USA is called Burning Stone, i.e. Magma. And I saw Ruins, and I know Tatsuya a little bit. I'm surprised. His English is okay, actually. They're a great band.
He was manning the merch table.
Right.
So I went and I just bought this directly from like they had, and I just didn't understand, what are you guys doing here? Like it just seems so random.
They're playing Near Fest.
Well, of course, but I didn't quite connect the dots. It was just like incredible. After which came Cheer Accident, and that was the night they decided to be hillbillies, and they just sat there and told stories with a blade of grass and played banjos sometimes, and it was just a long bit.
That's well, you could have used them because it wasn't in English.
That's right, but I'm good friends with Tim and all those guys, so I know them and I love them, but they're mostly in English. So yeah.
They're mostly
in English, if you can call that.
Oh
English.
yes, I know, I never heard about their hillbilly night, but
they always do bits.
They always always do something.
Yeah, one night they opened for Sleepy Time and they didn't play a note. They just assembled their instruments and disassembled while a guy talked.
Crazy.
Like, I don't know, but when they play, they're brilliant.
Yeah, they're good.
It was a great night. So this really impressed me, and I thought, all right, this has got everything. It's got the vocals. It's got really tight bass playing. It's a beautiful record. I love this thing, and I hope people give it a shot.
Do you know their other records?
This is the only one I have because
they're all good.
One they had. And I just bought it from this guy, and I have loved it from that day. It's absolutely wonderful.
I think that's their 5th album.
Well, I'm going to look into it. But
you should look into it because all their records are good.
Yeah, I'm sure those guys did not suck. So.
Pete, I couldn't think of an album you would hate more.
Really? No, the real Mag. He hates the real Magma.
No, that's good stuff.
I will say, out of a lot of the countries where I've heard prog music from, the Japanese vocals at times are a little iffy with me. I try. There's some that I don't mind too much. Some I'm kind of like,
I couldn't think of a Japanese band that sang in Japanese that would make the list.
Right.
But these guys sing.
I
don't even know what they sing.
It's all right, but Steve's turn.
Yep. What do you got, Steve?
So I thought about a lot of things, and, you know, for better or for worse, I decided not to feature things that I'm not listening to very much these days. You know, anytime in the last 35 years, if you had asked me to pick one of these records, I would have said, oh, Pero Nemico by PFM. That's been a favorite forever. But honestly, I mean, I still have my copy on album and I still have my copy on CD, but I haven't played it in a long time. And so I decided that I'm going to choose things that I'm listening to currently that are, you know, because otherwise it would be like too much old favorites. And it's like, I mean, I'm sure I must still love Pero Nemico, but I haven't pulled it off the shelf. So I decided not to include it. All right, so I'm going to start with the most left field one. You know, it's Prog if you say it is and I say it is, so it's Prog. This is a record I heard. This is not the cover that was originally released in the US. It's by an Ethiopian singer named Mahmoud Ahmed. It's called Ir Melamela. It's his third of 3 albums from the 70s. Whereas Spain opened up in 1975, Ethiopia, I believe in 1976, experienced the military coup and everything shut down and everybody ran away, and huge diaspora of people, a lot of them to the USA. A lot of musicians ended up in the USA. There's a very large Ethiopian population in the US, and there's a very large Ethiopian population in Washington, DC, and in Silver Spring. So, but I heard this before all of that. And this record, Ir Melamela, was released on crammed discs in 1982, I think, which is a Belgian label. It was the first Ethiopian record released outside of Ethiopia. And a friend of mine told me, this is great, you should buy it. And I went to the store and I bought it. You know, this is 1982, 1983. It's before the internet. Somebody tells you want to hear it, you have to, like, you know, put your money down, baby. So I did. And it's, yeah, it's from 75. The band is, it's 2 guitars, bass, drums. I'm sorry, 2 saxes, guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, and Mahmoud singing. And it opened up a world for me of music that I didn't know existed. Like, what are these scales? What is this? Why is this so obviously Western, but what are these crazy modes that they're using? And what is this and what is that? And I really liked it. I mean, I liked it enough. Again, this is pre-internet. I went out, I mean, it was like, I buy this record, friend tells me to buy it. It's from Ethiopia. What do I know from Ethiopia? You know, I'm a punk kid from the suburbs, and it really knocks me out. And I actually like went to Radio Shack and bought a shortwave radio because I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, it's like all over the world is this incredible music, which of course was wrong. You know, that was the most foolish purchase I ever made. It's a lot of you know, it's a lot of bad music and people sending Morse code to each other. But that's how strongly it affected.
Wow.
So, and it's a very, very well-known record if you're into world music. And it's kind of like I said, you know, it's the first Ethiopian record released in the West.
Cool. I haven't heard any of these 3 picks so far. That's all right.
Can I tell a horrible joke?
Sure.
What's the world's fastest animal? The Ethiopian chicken. I'm sorry. Thank you. So
he'll be here all week.
Yeah, exactly.
right. I don't want to go out of order. Is it my turn?
Not yet. Almost.
It's Pete's turn.
Almost. I'll be quick.
No, it's your turn, Pete. Right.
I'll be quick. All right. Well,
No.
mine's not quite as obscure, I think, as the three so far. But hey, going to go to Canada. All right. I believe this is one of the Quebec bands. Singing in that French Canadian tongue they got going on. Harmonium from 1975. All right. I'm going to try and. I've never been able to say this. Si on avait besoin d'un cinéma saison. Is that kind of how it goes?
Besoin de quoi?
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna say it again. Come on. one of their classics. I mean, they have a couple that are considered classics. I always kind of like this one the best. Got like 5 long tracks. It's got flutes and sax, and
It's a wonderful record.
it
It's
is.
a wonderful,
And the vocals are gorgeous.
Wonderful. I have their first 3, which I think is basically there's 3 albums and then there's a live album.
Yep.
I don't have the live album, and the first one's a little bit on the folky side, but it's a nice record. But that one's wonderful. And what is it? Entournie is the live record. What's the name of the
Leheptad
studio double?
Yeah, Leheptad.
Oh, Leheptad.
It's the double.
Yeah,
Leheptad.
those are both great. Now, Pete, I'm just sort of curious, because I have pals in Quebec. Are you aware of how important that record is to the Quebec people, and especially like the Quebec independent movement? It's huge. That record. It's legend. That record is huge, and I mean that record in Quebec sold. Everybody owns that record. It's just like it's like a cultural thing. It's not it's like showing that you're proud of what you are and blah 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 blah. So it's kind of interesting in that sense too. How much you meet all these people, none of whom have anything else that even remotely resembles progressive rock, but they have that album.
Yeah,
I'm on some audiophile forums, and some of those guys, they talk about that Harmonium album.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Is it a great recording? Because I never really.
I don't know.
It is. It's a beautiful album. It's not.
No, it's a beautiful album. I meant as a recording, since Ken's talking about it as.
I think it
audio
sounds
form.
great. There's a lot of cool things going on. It's like you can hear all the instruments. I like what I like about this so much is like, there's all these instruments being used on every song. I mean, geez, you got like recorders and harp and flutes and the guitars and all different keyboards, and you can hear everything. And the arrangements are just like gentle enough where everything really comes through. So like this is definitely like headphone music, I think. But one of the reasons why I picked this is because again, they're singing. It's French Canadian vocals, but who cares? I mean, it's just really, really gorgeous singing on here. And all the songs just really kind of float, and they're melodic, and they're just intricate enough that you can call it this thing we call prog. But yeah, a gorgeous album. I picked this over the third album because while I like that one a lot too, that's the double album. It's really long. I think this is a little more compact, works a little bit better. And I agree with you, Steve. The first album is a little too folky for me. I'm not a huge fan of that one. But this kind of puts both worlds together really good. So, that is my choice, Harmonium, their second album. Back to Ken.
I think that's the one. So Pete, this one's for you.
Okay.
So my number 4 choice, Magma Live.
I will say, out of all the Magma albums that I had and got rid of, because I hated every one of them, that one it was the only one that I actually got some enjoyment out of.
Well,
That's the
musically,
that's
it's
the,
fantastic.
That's the one.
I've
That's
always
the
said,
one that you always tell people who don't know Magma to listen to
yeah,
first.
it's the gate. This is the gateway drug into Magma.
Yeah.
It's got, they went through like a lot of like, classic lineups. Everybody's got their favorite, if, Paganotti's playing bass or Yannick Top's playing bass or this guy, that guy. Didier Lockwood is in the lineup. I love Didier Lockwood.
He was amazing.
Great violin. He was one of the greatest violinists, right? And there's a lot of space in the to the album. It has all the classic Magma elements. You got Christian Vander pounding away. You figure he's not going to make it to the end of the show. He's going to just plots right there on stage, right? I mean, you got the chanting. It's got all the key Magma elements, but it's presented in a way that's digestible. You can't, like Mechanic Destructo Commando or Contarcos, they might be better albums, but if you're not a fan, or if you're uninitiated, you can't listen to those albums. That would be like listening, just like your first jazz album being like John Coltrane's Sunship or something like that. Right. So it's just done in a way where there's space, there's long instrumental parts, the playing is great.
Well, the one thing, I mean, that the thing that's interesting, I think, about live is that record, they're obviously having, somebody in the band, I suppose it's Chris John, decided that we have this incredible violin player and we're going to give him lots of room to be a soloist. And it's their most jazz rock because it you're right, it is the most open and it has the most solo. I mean, Contarcos is a pretty great record, but there's it's one of my favorites by them, but even the solos don't really sound like traditional solos, whereas
those are dense albums.
Yeah,
those are very.
Didier Lockwood sounds like sounds like a motherfucker playing his bow off, and so it's I think it's very relatable, or much more relatable to someone who likes Return to Forever.
Yeah, I mean,
or
to
John
me, it's like a mix of like jazz rock, like colliding with like 20th century classical composition.
Yeah,
and he claims, Vander claims to be influenced by Coltrane, but you could hear a lot of like Carl Orff in there. That's the one. I mean, Pete, even you said, that was probably the one you got some level of enjoyment out of this.
You know what it is for me, Ken? I almost wish they would have done, how, like, you should know this, all these Inside Out releases that come out, they do they have the regular album, and then the second disc is all the instrumental versions of all the songs, right? That's what I would want that to do. Ditch the freaking Kabayan language and just give me the music and I'm okay with it. Once they start doing all that, I can't listen to it.
I love Lockwood, and I always tell the story. He took up residence. He was living in New York City for a little while, and I saw him play. I saw him play at 7th Avenue South in the Village, and I went up to him, and I told him I was a fan of Magma. He just had this big grin. He gave me a big hug, and he was just thrilled that somebody. I think he was thrilled that somebody in New York City knew who he was. But he was great, and then actually I saw him on my honeymoon in Paris at the Rex Theater, and
wow.
that was a crazy show. So he had Andre Ciccarelli playing drums. It was Jacques Higelin came out as a surprise guest. I thought they were going to set fire to the theater. It was unbelievable. But anyway, just to get back, I mean, like I said, this is, I tried for years to get into Magma because I had all the wrong albums. I mean, I must have bought this album. I was probably about 18, 19 years old, and I had difficulty with this. I mean, Magma's not for the faint of heart. It takes many tries to get into their music, and this is the one that will allow you to do it. And the CD, Steve, I think the CD has what? It's got extra music on it.
It's got about an extra 25 minutes, I think.
Yeah. So, and it's not a super expensive album. I'm sure you can still find it.
It came out in the USA.
This is released in the US on Tomato. There's a nice hole punch. Try and find the copy on Tomato without a hole punch. You probably can't, because they probably will put out there as promos.
All they did was put out.
Anyway, promos. That's my number 4.
Cool. All right, Louis, back to you.
All right. Well, it's nearly impossible to do one of these lists without taking a deep dive into the Italians, right? But I thought I would try to choose one that would not steal Pete's thunder, because all your guests always steal your picks, right? So I have extras just in case.
I'm used to it, Louis.
I'm
used to it.
But this is one that but this is one that I really love, and I don't know if it's as popular as some of the other Italians. This is again, this is not a simple record to listen to, but it's a very rewarding listen if you do it. I am talking, of course, of Aria, Work Will Set You Free.
You
Nice.
bastard. You son of a bitch. You fucking son of a bitch.
Wow, see, it wasn't me today. Look at that. Woo!
And you know what? I only have you to thank for this fucking gem of an album. So thank you, Steve.
No, you can talk about it. I actually pulled out, in case somebody grabbed what I did, I pulled out a sixth. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. So
I've got a sixth and a seventh.
I honestly, I don't feel qualified to talk about it other than to say that I absolutely love this record. And it's difficult to describe it because it is really not like your typical Italian prog.
They're very different than
so
all
they
the
are
other
very
Italian prog
idiosyncratic,
bands.
and these guys are great. The other Italian band that I was on the fence was I didn't include them because I figured somebody else would. That reminds me a little bit of this craziness is Deus Ex Machina. These guys are awesome, and I can't get enough of their albums. But this one in particular is my all-time favorite. This is, I think that anybody who's interested in prog rock should give this guy a spin. I mean, this is just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful record.
I mean, they're probably one of the more, I mean, I kind of feel like at their heart, Aria are a jazz rock band.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but they have two things that makes them different. They've got this insanely virtuosic singer who people, you know, like anybody, it's an acquired taste. You like him or you don't like him, but he is virtuosic. And the other thing, which is not something I realized until many years later of being a fan, is many of their themes are stolen Bulgarian and Greek and Macedonian tunes, and which they've turned into jazz rock pieces. But you know, in the 80s, I bought a lot of Non Such Explorer records because I was interested and they were inexpensive. And there were a couple like Village of Bulgaria music, whatever. It's just like, oh my God, that's Elephant Bianca. Oh my God, it's this one. Oh my God, it's that one. And so that's kind of interesting because they do turn them into jazz rock tunes, but that's, you know, but they are traditional tunes.
Yes, and they're so good.
Yeah,
I love this band.
I actually like the later ones. I like Crack.
Yeah, I like the later ones more. That's a very good first step, but I like the later ones more.
Yeah, Crack is definitely great. Yeah, they all are. They have a couple of really good ones. Cool, good choice. All right, Steve, back to you.
Okay, well, so I'm just gonna so this is their fourth album. This is not choice because Luis blew me out of the water. This is called Aria Zione, and it's by the most well-known version of the band. The version that Luis had has a sax player who left after the first album, and the bass player who's on the first album, that's Arbeit macht frei, is Jan Patrick Jivas, who after the one album left to go to PFM. So they didn't replace the sax player, and they got a different guy in to play bass. And then it's the band that lasts for 4 or 5 albums. And the one I had chosen is a live album, and it's pretty interesting. But I'm not going to use that. So we're going to do this one instead. I didn't want to do both of them because they're kind of similar.
Wait, Steve, is that before you do that? Because with the Aria, was that the one with Steve Lacy?
No.
That was a live album?
No. That's a later one. This is Aria Zione. It's by the quintet. It's
okay.
They do Camino Rosa and they do a couple. I mean, no. It's not the crazy improv shit. Sorry. So that's fine. So Deus Ex Machina,
yes.
De Republica, we did that one instead. You know, it's like I didn't want to have them both, but I was sort of afraid somebody would choose aria. So Deus Ex Machina are another Italian band, and they're a 6-piece. They're guitar, keyboards, bass, drums, violin, and a virtuosic singer, who in many ways really is kind of reminiscent of Aria's singer, who died very young. He died in 1979. He died of throat cancer in New York City in 1979. But so Deus Ex Machina, this is their third album. I think it's the one where they really found themselves, and they kind of made their way to America. They played Prog Fest in '94, maybe, and then they did. In '96 they came, and in fact I had a big fight with my wife over Deus Ex Machina because I wanted to go out to Los Angeles to Prog Fest to see them, and she was like, "Oh, I want to go see my niece," and it's like, I don't want to see your fucking niece. I want to go see Deus Ex Machina. Fuck that shit. And so we had a big fight. I didn't go. And then they played, they came to Prog Day in '96. And I saw them not at Prog Day, because I wasn't going to Prog Day I saw them at Orion, which was the first time I went to Orion. And it was the first time you went to Orion, Luis?
It was around that time, but I was at that show.
I was at that show. Was eating hot dogs with them at Pollock Johnny's.
Yes.
Oh, that was not me. I was there when Mike Potter told them not to go to Pollock Johnny's.
Pete, do you know about Pollock Johnny's?
No.
So Pollock Johnny's was a long time. I think it's a small chain in Baltimore, and they sold Polish sausage. And I mean, you know, I don't know. I think I had one once.
You can tell where this story's going.
But yeah, well, yeah. The during their set at Orion, the violin player had to run off the stage because he had the runs, and Alberto, you know, basically like, "Oh, violin player has to go. Hey, thank you, Pollock Johnny." But the other thing, Luis, if you remember. It was Mastermind, Ars Nova, and Deus Ex Machina, and you know, I mean, first of all, something happened, and like I think Mastermind and Deus Ex Machina had a fight because Deus Ex Machina almost didn't go on, but they ended up going on. But it's like I remember I got home at 4 a.m. I mean, the show was over at like 2:45 or 3 or 3.
Well,
it was like
after the show. They had the fight or before.
I think it was before.
Oh, okay.
I think it was before. I think there was they were traveling a little bit together. Did Ars Nova also play?
Ars Nova and Mastermind were traveling around together, I think.
Yeah, you know, but yeah, so I mean, but there was a period like I was hearing like, oh, you know, Deus Ex Machina may not be going on, but they went on. They played amazing, and yeah, so I got to see them, even though my wife.
Also, because Ars Nova were using my keyboard, so they had to look the old Core Go 1W, so they had to switch their sounds and had to be there to be like available to help them with anything, and that was when Mike Potter coined the phrase, Ars Nova, Prog's guilty pleasure. And it was a great night. I had no idea, and then later I ran into them in Mexicali.
Right.
Just by coincidence, we happened to be next door neighbors in the hotel. And let me tell you, those guys can party. Alberto, he's a good guy, but he can party hard. So we had a good time. They were not, and just like with Pollock Johnny's, they were not shy about trying the local specialties.
No, they're crazy.
So that was very good. I had a great time.
They're crazy. So
going out with them.
So I have a million Deus Ex Machina stories.
I'm sure you do.
I'm gonna. Do I have time to tell one, or are we running out of time?
Go ahead, tell one.
All right. So when they did when they played Near Fest, I think that's 2000 and
One or 2000, something like that.
No, I think it was 2001. So I had signed them to do their next record, but it wasn't out yet. And I had a friend of mine, Keith Maxsood, who lives outside of the city, help them to rent a van because they were going to play like 5 shows. They were going to play Nearfest. They played a show that I did in New York City at the Knitting Factory of all cuneiform bands. And then they did like, they went to Cleveland, and they went to Chicago, and they went to this, and they went to Philadelphia. So Keith, Keith is the bass player for Prezant. And Keith is a really sweet man. He's like a really nice, kind-hearted guy. Yes, and he lent them a bunch of little stuff. Like he lent them like 4 music stands and 6 guitar cables and 4 splitter boxes and da. And so and the thing about Deus Ex Machina is they're totally Italian, and they're very lackadaisical, I guess is the nice word. And so when they came back, I called Keith up. I said, Keith, oh yeah, they were sweet guys. I said, yeah, okay, Keith. But like, did you get all your stuff back? Like, did they bring you back your cables and and he said, oh yeah, I got everything back. Same number I gave them. I gave them 6 guitar cables. I got 6 guitar cables back. They weren't all mine. I gave them 5 music stands. I got 5 music stands back. They weren't all mine. I was like, they brought back everything numerically, but they weren't all the things that Keith gave them. It's like, okay, well,
they got the numbers right though.
The numbers were right. They were trying. They were trying to be good boys.
They're good guys, man. I dig them. They're nice.
Oh guys. But you're also not, you're also not trying to put them on a show where they're sound checking till 10 minutes after the first band's supposed to go. Right. No, they're wonderful. They're wonderful people.
Yes.
And that singer, man, boy, is he powerful.
Yeah.
I didn't pick them because I figured Steve would. Their Cinque album is a master album. I love that one. I mean, I love them all, but the Cinque is my favorite.
Good stuff. All right, well, I'm going to go to Italy here. I had a really hard time not filling up my top 5 with Italian records because I knew that wouldn't be any fun, right? There's so many good ones, and he put it perfectly at the top of the hour. He's, some of these countries, Italian vocals are just very pleasing on the ear. That's just the way it is, right? And I had a couple other bands that I kind of wanted to pick, but I was like, well, the vocals on this album are really good. The music is otherworldly. And I went with Il Balletto di Bronzo's second album, Is, from 1972. Of
course.
This is like probably one of the greatest Italian progressive rock albums that, half the universe has never heard, except for people who are into this sort of thing.
Oh, you just shot down Mr. Ken.
No, yeah. No, it's good. That's what it's all about, man.
I mean, I wanted to pick a Bonko album, but then I was like, oh, but there's this. I mean, man, it's like I'm sure all of you guys probably saw their performance at Nearfest that one time. The reunion when you got Gianni Leone there with them, and he just looked kind of ridiculous with that caked on makeup and everything like that. But man, can that fucker play, huh? It's like, oh my God. And this album,
he can play, he can play and he can sing.
Absolutely. I mean, just, man, this album is so good. It's heavy. The keyboards all over the place, the over the top vocals. I mean, it's just so complex and symphonic and aggressive. I mean, you listen to their first album.
Yeah.
Nothing like this.
Yeah.
No.
Nothing. Like night and day.
Well, he's not on the first album.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Stylistically, it's not even in the same ballpark. I mean,
yeah, it's nothing special.
No. But this is a absolute masterpiece. Il Balletto di Bronzo, Is, I think it's Y-S.
Is.
Yes, that's how they say it. If you haven't heard it, get it. It's absolutely.
Yes. DLP goes to hell.
That's my number 4.
Yeah.
Back to Ken.
So, Pete, I guess I'm going to pick up on something you said. So for me, I mean, I'll give away the big reveal is that my next 3 are all Italian bands. And you can't get away from the fact that when we're talking about the best non-English vocal prog bands, it's Italy, because the Italians, they didn't give a fuck. They just said, you know, we don't care about sales in the US. We don't care about sales in the UK. We're going to sing in Italian. And, you know, all the great prog bands, you know, they came from Italy. So we can't get away from it. You know, we could have easily done the top 10 prog albums from Italy. And
Sure. Easy.
They'd be 10 great albums. Not good albums, great albums.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So my next album is, by the way, Yeast was one of my honorable mentions. So, you know, it's a classic. You know, everybody should own that album. But, you know, I was weighing, you know, and as I told Pete, it's very hard. I kept whittling the list down. And then ultimately, just for a little variety, I said, Yeast, I'll hold it up at the end, you know. So anyway. All right. So my number 3. I should actually hold it this way or this way.
Yep.
Right there, baby.
Isaiah Rosenbach, Zarathustra. You got it?
Yes. This is, of course.
Yeah. So they were a one and done band. And for me, they kind of personify what I think it's like the Prog archives they call rock progressivo Italiano. You know, they created this, this category. The band started, they originally called there was a band called Il Sistema. Mellow Records put out this sort of bootleg sounding recordings from the band, and they split. Some of the guys formed Celeste, and the guitar player formed Isaiah Rosenbach. It's a concept album. It's based around the writings of Nietzsche. And the guy who's like just the showstopper is the keyboard player, Pete Pardo, who he must have got hit by a car when he walked out of the studio, because he never did anything else after that album. You can't find him playing on anything else. And the guy's just an absolute monster. He plays, you know, it's got the Melotron, the Mini Moog, a lot of Hammond organ. You know, you get flashes of Keith Emerson in there. It's just a very intense album. You got the sidelong Zarathustra title track. It's just a showcase for karate. I mean, there's some good guitar playing. You know, the guitarist is, what was his name? Enzo Maragno. He was the guy that came from Il Sistema. He's fine, and he's a good compliment. There's a great singer, Stefano Gallifi, and he's very, very good. But so if you're looking for an album that kind of defines the Italian prog sound, this is it. And it's just a shame that they never got to do anything else.
Agreed.
Whole classic.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, there's a couple of like those one and done albums from that era from Italy.
There's a number.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Italy.
And I don't want to give the other one away that I was thinking of, because I don't want, in case someone has picked it. But
well, we could discuss it if it doesn't discuss at the end.
Yeah, we could do that. So anyway, great choice. Yeah, that was one of the ones I considered as well. There's too many from
It almost didn't make the cut, because like it's on the level of Il Balletto di Bronzo. You know what I mean? It was like I was weighing which one to, you know, cut loose. So
you know, and actually, Ken, you said something really interesting, which I guess I never really, you know, like there are a lot of, you know, there's a lot of great French prog bands, but there's a number of them where they sing in English. Yeah. You know, whereas the Italians,
they didn't care.
Well, you know, if they have the album in English, it's because they did it in Italian first and then re-recorded it. And it's never that they are doing all their albums in English.
And you know, if you think about the Italian bands that sang in English, they're really pretty unsuccessful, or they were minor efforts. I mean, like Osana, Landscape of Life. Yeah, right. Nothing. Right. It's not a great Osana album.
But it's true. But I mean, even the ones that did, you know, where, you know, there is something in English, it's like, it's because they later went back and re-recorded it so they could
like
market
those PFM albums. Those PFM.
Well, exactly. Like,
you know,
PFM are the number one that I think. Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, Italy, I mean, there were so many of those one and done, Raccomandata, Risfuto Ritorno. I mean, they were just, you know, I mean, you could go on, and they're all good. They're all really good.
Yeah, they're all really good.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, they had, and yeah. I mean, so we could be here all night if we were just doing Italian bands. That's why when we were putting this together, it was hard because I was trying to find a balance. And so I think, I'll pull a band from Spain. Of course, you got to have Magma on the list. Sorry, Pete. But I couldn't think of a French band really that was worthy to make the list. I mean, Atoll, no. Ange, for me, no. So it always came back to Italy.
Yeah. Yep.
And the other thing is, if you think about it, what are the great operas, right? I mean, it's a great language. All the great operas in the world, they come out of Italy, right?
Yeah.
So,
it's the truth. Yep. All right, Louis, what do you got?
Well, while we're on it, we might as well get over it. This is Bonko, Io sono nato libero. Banco de Mutuo Soccorso. These guys have so many kick-ass records. I just love this because of the lead off track, nomad song for a political prisoner, Canto nomade per un prigioniero politico. It's a great tune. And then
it just sounds beautiful. You don't even need to hear the song.
That's right. It could be somebody's shopping list. It could be the dialogue of a porn movie. It doesn't matter. It sounds amazing. And
I've seen some Italian porn.
This one is particularly special to me because I bought this right after I saw them at Nearfest. I'd never heard Bonko. What the fuck is this? I was debating leaving so we get back to Baltimore earlier, and because I didn't know anything about him. And I was with my friend Jeff, and we just said, all right, we'll give him 3 songs, and if it's bad, we just take off. And by the middle of the second one, I was crying like a fat chicken prom night. It was so beautiful. So this was amazing, and I even have my ticket stuff from that night on the CD. This is amazing. So
that was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was.
It was impressive. Plus, I loved so much the in between banter that was just so perpendicular to the music. Like the singer who passed away recently, when he introduced the horn player or the clarinet player, he was like, "This, look at this guy, look at his hair, I hate him." And then whenever there was an instrumental break, he did the walk-off thing, right, of all the prog guys. And if this guy happened to be anywhere near his route, he would just jam him right in the crack of the ass, like get out of the way, in a way that left no doubt that he was coming through. It was an amazing show it was funny, it was moving, it was perfect. I loved it, and I became a lifelong fan. Yeah. But this was the first one, and this is, there are so many good ones, but this one, as little Italian as I understand, I actually also like the lyrics, so I dig this a lot.
Their first 5 albums are really.
Yes, you can't go wrong.
You know what's my favorite Bonko album? It's Di Terra, believe it or not.
Di Terra.
Yeah, that has no words.
I love Di Terra.
That's a great one.
It didn't make the list because it's
instrumental. It didn't make the list because there's no singing.
Yeah.
That album was the reason I asked Pete, "Hey man, do they have to have vocals?"
Yeah.
I was gonna go straight for that.
Yes, they do.
And I love Francesco, but man, Di Terra was that to me is just a masterpiece.
That's like one of the greatest rock band with orchestra records that is not cheesy in any,
There was a maturity to that album, and I remember I bought that when it came out. I didn't have anything like it, and I listened to that over and over. There's just a lot of magic on that album, man.
It's a lot of magic. That's yes.
It's a very special album.
Yep, indeed.
And I don't know the story why Francesco, what happened, why they made an instrumental album when they had one of the greatest singers in the world, and they just can't. I mean, it was peculiar. I think he's credited on the album for something. I'm not sure what, but
those guys were obviously old friends, right? So I guess what was the nickname that the guy said he had? The left hand of the devil, the keyboard.
They called him the devil. Was it the devil's left hand or the devil's right? I don't know.
Left hand was so fast and so.
Yeah, Victoria McKenzie.
Yeah, and I think he just had that piece in him, and the guy said, "Go for it," right? Yeah. But he wanted it to be like it was still them. even though he didn't have a vocal part for it. But yeah,
And they shot their load after that. Conte de Primavera was a letdown.
yeah, well, but it's a great song nonetheless, live. I just love that band. I have a, it's wonderful.
Yep, agreed. All right, Steve, you're number 3.
Okay, well, my next 3 are actually from France, and I know. And so this, it's black. It's black.
Spinal Tap, Smell the Glove.
Metallica, the Black Album.
It's black. It's black.
Is that volume 2?
Yes, it's volume 2. Wait, but on the inside.
Wow, look at that.
Wow.
So this is the 4th and final album by the original lineup by Albert Marcor. And Albert Marcor he's still around. He's a French musician and composer and singer. And he's kind of a terrible singer. I'm not choosing him because I think his vocals are so wonderful. But it's the totality. And his stuff is very complex and kind of complex but very melodic, and kind of a complex in a way that you might not notice. It's not very show-offy. It's tunes, and they're done exactly the same way, and everything is written out. There's no solos, that are this or that, and it's just a marvelous album. And you can get it on. Albert managed to get all his rights back at some point, and you can get them from him on Bandcamp. And that's the only way I think you can get it now. And it's just a great record. I don't know how to describe it because it's just Albert. But I mean, I'll say this much: I traveled to Quebec specifically to see Albert's only performance in North America. And it was great. It was like really funny. And I know I was missing everything because he's very funny, he's very deadpan, and it's all in French. And my French is non-existent, but you could just tell it, you could see the audience was just reacting to these things. But he's a real unique talent. And so that one gets chosen. It is sung in French, but it's not because he's a wonderful singer. It's because the whole record is wonderful.
Pretty cool. All right. My number 3, let's go to 1994. I decided to pick something from a Hungarian band who I listened to a lot in the 90s. I haven't really kept up with them in recent years, but I do like these early albums quite a bit. After Crying, Fold S Egg, I guess is the way how you say it. I'm not really sure if that's how it's pronounced. Something like that. I don't speak Hungarian. Really interesting band. They kind of combine like this bombastic ELP-ness with like chamber rock and classical. They got a cello player. They usually feature some violin on the albums. You got keyboards and trumpets and guitars and flutes and really cool stuff. Fairly long albums. They mix some shorter pieces with some epic tracks. I love the inclusion of the cello in their music. I think the cello plays off the keyboards really, really nice. You got like synthesizers and electric and acoustic pianos and really cool stuff. They got a lot of albums. The vocals are pretty good. Again, I don't speak a lick of Hungarian, but it doesn't really matter. They're not off-putting at all. But I think there's this kind of grandiosity of their music that I always really like. And I love the addition of the strings, which I think made them very, very different during a time where, prog bands were popping up all over the world once again in the early 90s. And again, I don't even know if they're still around. I haven't kept up with them in a while, but I
don't think they put anything out in a while.
In a long time, right? I mean, I have a whole bunch of their albums, but I don't think I have anything past like.
Did they play Nearfest? I remember seeing.
Yes.
I remember seeing them at Orion.
I saw them at Orion.
Yes. I don't remember them at Nearfest.
I thought
they played Baja as well.
Yeah.
That's
I didn't see them at Nearfest because, like you, we were working and we had to choose what we wouldn't see. I didn't see. I'm really sad to say see Bonko because I didn't want to give up the chance of being able to put my stuff away and get it away so that I could go to bed by midnight or whatever it was. It's like, I never saw the last band, because if you saw the last band at Nearfest, it meant that you had to then, after the band, go back to the vendor room and load everything out.
I was bummed I missed the reunion, the Straws reunion, listening to them loading out. And but I remember seeing Keith Emerson. I remember seeing Bonko. There were a few.
Marcor were magnificent. As were Magma, truly.
Pete, it's like there were a bunch of good Hungarian bands.
Yeah.
But
Solaris
were great.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I like Karaya Ram.
Were great.
Yeah. So I liked After Crying at Orion. They were good.
I think they played.
They were very good at Orion.
Because they had an album called what was it? Show, I think it was called, which came out in 2003. And I think that's the year they played, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think was it Struggle for Life?
Could be.
Well, they also had some King Crimson covers. It's like a double disc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, the cello player was the main guy. He was like the band leader.
Oh, incredible player too. Yeah.
He wrote all the charts and all the arrangements for everybody else. He was I remember talking to him at Baja.
It's been 10 years since their last album, so it's been a while. So I don't know if they're still together or what, but good stuff though. Good stuff. Very different.
Oh yeah.
Back to you, Ken.
All right. Well, this one's not going to come as a surprise. So again, Italy. PFM, Pro Nemico. Yeah. So for me, PFM, they're kind of like the foundation of progressive rock, regardless of really any language. I mean, they had this incredible body of work. They're still around. They were very early on, they were very influenced by British bands. You hear a lot of Genesis. Oh, yeah. You hear a lot of King Crimson in here. To my ears, they were never like a very bombastic band. They didn't have like that ELP influence, but they had the great keyboard player, Flavio Promoli. I mean, that guy, he was just amazing. He's playing everything. You got the Melotrons and the organ, everything. It all comes together. They were all great players. The thing that made Per Nemico stand out, and it also, by the way, it could have been Storia di Minuto, the first album, almost interchangeable, but this one I think was the better of the two by a margin. The thing that made them stand out was Mauro Pagani. Mauro Pagani was playing flute, and he was also playing violin. And when he was playing flute, it kind of gave you a little bit of that Peter Gabriel element, from, like Foxtrot and what have you. There was kind of like the way I say, they were a bit more refined. And there was just like a bit of elegance to this album. And I just, it's just a fantastic album. Now I'll tell you what sucks is this, which is basically the English version.
Yeah.
And Pete Sinfield wrote the lyrics. And if that's all you know, it's a fine album. But once you hear this could go in the dumpster.
Yep.
So yeah, and they were. It was not like this. They were, like I said, kind of heavy-handed, bombastic moments. But that's not really what they were about. It was just a beautiful album.
I think there's a lot. Well, actually, I think that the great thing about Per Nemico is there's a lot of notes, but there's still somehow a lot of space.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not heavy-handed.
It's not. Oh no,
it doesn't bludgeon you. It's an album that kind of unfolds itself. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, they're super cool dudes. I'm sure you guys have met them and talked to them extensively.
I rode the elevator with Franz DeChoco at Nearfest. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
buddies.
We played a show with them here in Chicago, and they basically used the Sonos Umbra backline. I gotta tell you, I have played shows with bands that have 1/10 of 1% of their talent and history, that have a million times their ego and their drama. These guys were so cool to work with, easy. Franz's wife is also kind of the manager or the tour manager in some capacity, and she was adorable. She was a no fuss, no muss, no problems. She was all about just getting things done, getting things to work. They were a lot of fun, and I gotta tell you, it's a little bit weird when you come down to that little green room that they have at Reggie's, and Franz comes out and wearing a bathrobe, and just hugs you and goes, "I love you, I love you." It's, what can I say? This is a great band, and
the other thing about I didn't mention, Luis, is the guitar player Franco Musita.
Yes,
he's great. And he plays some beautiful acoustic parts on this album also. That's the thing. So he plays off of, the three, it was like Musita, Pagani, and Promoli, the three of them together. It's just, man, that's a special album.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. That's why I was here. But yep.
Cool. All right, Louis, you're number 2.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go with one that I think is really a special record. I think this is from 2000. It's Cabezas de Cera, Metal Música. This has vocals in Spanish by Ramsés Luna, who also plays saxophone and wind MIDI, and all the other instruments were actually built by them for the record. So this was a record that they made with a grant from the Mexican Cultural and Arts Center or grant, I should say. And this record is, well, they played a lot of this record when they played at Nearfest. And there is a lot of stuff here that if you're into King Crimson and really angular stuff, you will dig it. If you are into more, ethereal cosmic stuff, there'll be stuff for you there as well. But Ramsés also plays flute. He plays a variety of wind instruments. This is a great record. Cabezas de Cera, the Waxheads, from Mexico City. They've broken up, so they're no longer together. The two brothers still go under the name, but Ramsés and Edgar are now, they bowed out. So, but this is a great record, which is difficult to see because it has, obviously I've worn it out, but Metal Música, this is the one, Cabezas de Cera. Fantastic record. And again, the special charm with this one is that all the instruments were built. They're not traditional instruments. They tried to make electric versions of old, I would say Aztec instruments or Mesoamerican kind of concepts, and then they just mixed it with the regular stuff. It's just incredible. So this is great. I don't know if you can see it, but there are pictures of all these, like the booklet has pictures of all the things they built.
Oh, wow.
This is a weird, all these are the instruments that they built for the project. And it's a really great, it's as OCD as prog music can get, right? Jarana Prisma, etc. It's just great stuff. So I love this record.
Did they play a Prog Day?
They played a Prog Day, yes. They played some tiny place in Philadelphia, and then they played at Orion. That's where I met.
And they played also a tiny place in Northern Virginia, done by Tom Hudden.
That's right. The SOAR, I guess.
Because I gave them a lift.
Yeah. So you met them, yeah.
Well, a little bit, yeah. I mean, I was a ride. I mean, yes, I met them.
Yes.
I don't remember if I saw them more than once, but the SOAR show was the one I remember because it was such a weird little place where they played, but they were so great, and there was there were 31 people maybe, and they just played, and they didn't seem to care. It was 31 people.
I mean, these guys are, especially I made very good friendship with Ramsés, with whom I still work to this day, but But the other guys, the two brothers, Mauricio and Paco, they're all great. And at that time, they were really at the peak of their power as a band before it all fell apart as the usual bullshit. But they were really, really.
Welcome to bands.
Oh yeah, don't even tell me about that. But they were great at that time. They just came to kick ass, and that's what they did. And they were so well rehearsed live. Everything was perfect. So if you have a chance, if you've seen that DVD, that's basically the show. If you don't have it, Pete, I'll be glad to send you a copy.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. Yeah, that'd be cool.
You can check it out. Yeah, this is a great record.
Cool. Steve, you're number 2.
So a Magma record, but the Magma record that I think has the best singing, which is, so it's Cantark Antaria. And the thing about Magma, I mean, if you don't like the singing, you don't like the singing, but, it's a pretty virtuosic band. I mean, Christian Vander's really, even now, and he's in his mid 70s, he's still very good. And, and in, 20 years ago, he was even better. And the bass player, Philippe Boussonet, who got canned recently for God knows why, because he was the most amazing bass player I could imagine. The band's always great, but I do remember one show, and I don't remember, I've seen Magma about 8 or 10 times. So I don't remember which show it is. I've seen them in France, I've seen them in New York, I've seen them at Nearfest, I've seen them in DC. I mean, I've seen them a bunch. But there was one show where, usually I'm just looking at the bass player and the drummer, because to me, it's just ungodly. But for whatever reason, I was paying attention to the vocalists, and it was like, Stella Vander's pitch is so good, it's like, I'm not even sure she can hear herself, and her pitch is so on. And these, this male and a main vocalist and the 4 female and it's just like, they're incredible. So, in terms of the singing, I think that this is the one, and it's also musically really great. But I wanted to pick this one just because I felt like, yeah, maybe Kantarkos is my favorite one, but it's not my favorite one because of the singing. So
wasn't that like an old composition?
Supposedly it is. Supposedly it was written at the same time as Kantarkos and never recorded. Is that true? Oh.
Was it performed?
Supposedly, yes. And actually, I take that back. There are really bad quality bootlegs in 1973 of them performing it, but they're terrible sound. I mean, it's like
even worse than in edits.
Well, no, it might be that level. Might be that level of horrible. I mean, they're terrible, but no, it was actually performed back then. And actually, so, this one was written back then, and so was the one that came after this one, whose name is escaping me right now, was also like something that was way back when.
One I call it, I mispronounce it. I call it like Eminent Ray.
Oh yeah, Eminent Kant Ray. Yeah, that's another one that was really done back then, because like on some of the albums that have since come out with bonus tracks on CD, there's extracts of Eminent Ray, as bonus tracks. One of the parts of that is on Magma Live as on the CD.
So think how weird that is. They had this body of work that they used to perform live, these like 40-minute compositions, but they didn't record them until like 40 years later.
Yeah, it's very weird. Well, they had, I think it was, I think that the legend is that there were 3 trilogies, and there's the Kantarkos trilogy, and there's the Mechanic Destructo Commando trilogy, and there's one other, and it's like, they didn't put out that many records. It's like, yeah, supposedly they're, were they all written? Were they all, I don't know. I wasn't around then, but it's weird. It is weird. You're absolutely right. That all this stuff
it's going to come out sooner or later.
Well, then they recorded it. I mean, you know, it just took them 40 years to record it.
Maybe, you know, I mean, you know, the thing, whatever that last record that they did was, that's from the late 70s. That's the record where the legend was when we released, Zess, when we released Zess, Magma is done. And so, you know, that they were releasing Zess and all the fans were fucking freaking out because it's like, oh my God, that's it. And then, you know, but Stella started walking that shit back real quick.
Zess is a good album.
This is a pretty good record. Yeah, that's an old piece. You know, that's an old piece. And yeah, I mean, it was like, you know, it's our last piece, but it's not, you know.
Yeah.
They're a crazy band. I mean, come on. It's like, you know, let's dress all in black and sing in our own language and, you know, ba 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 and ba 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 and ba 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 ba. You know, it's like, I like them, but, you know, it's like, I think I'm glad they're not my neighbors next door.
I took some of my work friends from Chicago to the show they did at Reggie's.
Yes.
They one of them, I believe the quote was, "What did I ever do to you?" Which I answered, you know, whatever it was, it's not enough. You're not worthy. Because that was an incredible show. With that one in Chicago that they played, dude. And every time I've seen them, yes, they.
I was going to say, I mean, but Luis, have you ever really seen a bad Magma show?
Never. And that's the thing. Every show has like one or two moments that are kind of similar, but then they'll just suddenly hit this like magic. It's like destruction happening, chaos, and then it just pixie dust and just beauty. And then all of a sudden, we're starting to get comfortable. They kick you square in the nuts, and they go back into the madness. And they so
I've seen Magma enough that I saw them make a clam on stage.
Really?
Yep.
You saw that bass player play a pickle?
Play a what?
A mistake? They play a clam?
I never heard pickle. Christian and the rest of the band came in on a different on Cantarco when I saw them. It was like half the band went and the other, you know, it was like I was amazed. It was like, you know, that's like that's you know that's like I mean, you know, that they're not supposed to be able to do that. That doesn't happen, right?
Right. That's right. That's
it was so funny because it wasn't even that big of a clam, but they did not all hit the one together, the one that you can't count in the first place.
That's right.
There's a lot of precision in that band.
There's a lot of precision in that band. You know, you know. I mean, it's like you might hate them, but you wouldn't. I assume, Pete, you didn't say to yourself, they don't know how to play.
No. I never doubted the
you wasn't in the room long enough.
No, I mean, I've listened to enough Magma to know musically it's great stuff. As soon as they open,
it's not your bag.
Yeah, you know, it's fine. I mean, you know, I'm just teasing. Boy, you know, Ken, I remember hanging with Matt Johnson at Nearfest.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot about these guys. You know, are they really good? I said, Matt, you know, I kind of think if you think you're into it, you understand the idea, I kind of think it's like, I think they're going to knock your fucking balls off. Just give them a chance because it's so different. You got to wait for you to get acclimated to what they're doing. It's so out.
He turned to me during their set and he just said, I get it.
Yeah, I think you were behind me and he hit me and he just was like,
Meanwhile, I was saying at the same time, get me the hell out of here.
I know. What did I ever do to you?
Seriously, there is something about that band live, within the live context. As I said, when I was talking about the Magma Live album, just seeing them live, it's a different experience than listening to them on record. Listen to them pretty well.
So that's actually so true. This is why when I had the opportunity, I took these guys to the show. I never say, "Hey, listen to this record," because I knew that would never happen.
You wouldn't understand it.
Yeah,
it's
the
like,
show was so good. Yeah.
It's like handing somebody like a Spanish dictionary and say, "Okay, speak to me in Spanish."
There you go.
And it sounds pretty elitist. I don't think it's just it really is. It's somewhat like they're their own genre.
They are.
Yeah. So then
Zool.
it's very alien
I mean,
phrasing.
it's true. It's Zool. You know, they did invent it. They invented a genre. How many bands can you trace it back to? What? That doesn't mean that they don't have. I mean, they obviously have influences. They're obviously taking from things, but you know, every Universe Zero comes from that, and Artzoid comes from that, and Korima comes from that, and blah 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 blah. You know, it's like, yeah, how many bands invent a genre?
Sure.
Cool. All right, my number 2. How about let's go to Sweden. 1992. I love this band, love this album, and yeah, it's sung in Swedish. Who cares? Musically, this like completely knocked me on my ass from the first time I heard this album. Anglagard Hybris debut album. I mean, you know, they wear their influences on their sleeve, which I think is okay. You know, early Genesis, early King Crimson, a little bit of Jethro Tull.
Yes, certainly yes.
Yeah, yes as well. Complex as all hell, long tracks, 2 Melotron players, flute, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, Rickenbacker bass, Taurus bass pedals, drums, and percussion. It's just beautiful music at 1 minute. The next minute, completely savage. Man, words can't even describe this. And even like when the vocals come in, the vocals are just like another instrument. And you know, their second album is all instrumental. They got the vocals on this album, but it's still beautiful either way. And I absolutely adore this. And you know, not too many like Swedish language albums have I listened to in my life. I mean, there's some, but not a ton. Some of them are hit or miss, but this is just absolutely perfection for me. A drop dead classic. That's my number 2.
It was going to be on my list, but it was, and the reason I left it off was I just felt, as much as I love the album, and I like the fact that I thought about it tells you that I thought it was a great record, is that I felt that it was a little too, overall, it was a little too much derivative of the past. It was like if it wasn't for SFF Symphonic Pictures, I don't think that album would exist. I mean, there are parts of it which are kind of lifted off, and it's everything you said. It's a great record. It's got Genesis, it's got King Crimson, it's sort of, but I sort of feel that they were sort of borrowing a little too much.
Yeah. I don't think people minded it too much at the time.
No, well, especially consider the context of the year that album came out.
Yeah.
There was nothing like it.
Yeah, they were the first wave of the of the revival, and
that was it.
And there were other people doing it, but the playing was, they were the best players, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was them and Anecdote, and you know, really, and yeah, Anglagard, they were great. And if you saw them live, they were, you know, they were excellent. I remember seeing them at Prog Fest in out in LA, and yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic album. In 90, when did the album come out? 93 was it? 92. 92. And then they played, I think, at 93 at Prog Fest, and then I think he had them back in 94.
In 94,
because 93 was, you know, there was problems. So
then they decided they all hate each other, which has continued to this day.
We were starving for that. We were waiting for that. I mean, you know, what did we have in 1992? We didn't have very much, you know, interesting, innovative prog. And, you know, it's not, I mean, it just, man, it struck a nerve with everybody, you know, because it did draw from all the influences that we all love. And, you know, it was, to me, it was like a great pastiche of all of those things that we hold so dear in this genre. And they did a great job of putting it together. And the second album, if I remember correctly, doesn't have vocals, but it's a great, the third album is, the
third album is great. Yeah.
It's great. I mean, you know, great band. They should be more prolific. And I don't know what they're doing now, but you have the spin-off All Traps on Earth put out a fine album, but anyway, if we were doing a top 10, that album would have made my list. And the other reason why I didn't put it on my list, I didn't have the album to hold up.
No prop, no pick, right?
If I don't have a prop, man, I'm nothing without my props.
I know. I hear you. Lewis, welcome back just in time. It's your turn.
Thank you. I don't know what the fuck happened, but all right. So people have chosen Museo Rosenbach.
You skipped me, but okay.
Oh, sorry. Duh.
It's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, Ken.
Lewis go and I'll go. Why don't you let Lewis go and then I'll go?
No. You go first.
No,
Hopefully
Lewis.
this won't turn out.
I defer to you.
Well,
I will go after you.
in case this gets fucked again. So since Museo Rosenbach has been called and Perun Amico has been called, I have two choices that I can go with, and I'm not sure which one to go with. I'm gonna go ahead and give a shout out to another Mexican band, just to not make my friend Ken look like a liar, and saying that I'm gonna call out Mexican bands and then I don't do it. I'm just gonna call out two.
I called it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. There's a little bit of Mexican nepotism. Yes, perhaps. Perhaps it's also a really good record. This is Cuentos y Fábulas, I guess Tales and Fables, Volume 1 by Luz Arriada.
Yes.
This also has vocals in Spanish by Ramses. It's a different crew. This is the band that he formed after he broke up from Cabezas de Cera. I'm not in this record, so this is not self-promotion. This is just a record that I discovered and I loved. And this is a really, really, really brilliant record. In particular, I love the songs Parlamento Saurio y Ritual de Fulanos. Those are really, really good songs. In a way, although not directly, of course, but it is thematically similar to this one. There's a lot of politics and a lot about, even though it's mostly instrumental, the lyrics talk about these issues. It is just a brilliant record. And it has a nice, it's a little awkward to fit it into a standard CD shelf, but it's as with most of the things that they make over there, the printing quality is just really, really nice. And it's just a great record, and I love it. So I thought, instead of going for another Italian, I'll just give these guys a shout out because I really love this record.
It's a nice looking package there.
Oh yeah, you'll be getting one.
Oh, cool, awesome.
These are good, man, and they're almost out of print. So
awesome. All right, Ken, I apologize. We'll circle back to you.
No, it's okay. So this one may be obvious, or maybe not. I don't know. Can we all see? It's
Yes.
Darwin.
Yeah,
Darwin.
Darwin rules.
And for me, it was almost like a coin toss between that and Perun Amico. So they're both on that level. This was the band's second album, and it's a concept album based around Charles Darwin and his theories of evolution. And I love the one that Luis did, Yo Sono Nato Libero, great album. But this one I think is just a little bit better. Bonko is all about the two keyboard players, the brothers, Gianni and Vittorio Nocenzi. You had Gianni playing piano. He was mostly concentrating on piano. He played some clarinet on this album. And Vittorio, I mean, Francesca called him the devil's left hand, He was a monster. He still is a monster keyboard player. He's all about the Hammond organ, the Mini Moog, everything. I mean, he's the bombastic side. Gianni was like the delicate side. The guitarist, Todaro, he's great. He complements those guys well. And then you had this amazing singer. It was like in Francesco Di Giacomo. It was like having Pavarotti fronting a prog rock band, this complex prog rock band. I mean, it was bombastic, man. It seemed to have like a classical influence. And it just, ELP was an obvious influence. Emerson had to have been an influence on Nocenzi, but you didn't listen to Bonko because there was so much happening. You didn't listen, and of course there was a guitarist. You didn't listen to them and say, these guys are like ripping off ELP. You know, even though they wound up recording for, you know, on Manticore, that awful album with the shoe, the brown cover one. I forgot to pull that one out. That's another one to stay away from. But, you know, here it is. You have this unbelievable vocalist, and then you have him singing in English. It's like, that makes, you know, would you have Pavarotti singing in English? It was silly. So you've got, yeah, it all just kind of works. It's just one of those albums. You just sit down and you're just blown away. You're just kind of drawn into the album, and it just knocks you on your ass.
Oh yeah,
Totally agree. Great choice. Like I said, any of those first like 5 Bonko albums for me are just,
yeah, they were yeah, there were no bad ones.
Yep.
Actually, the soundtrack is a little iffy, but yeah, but for me, this is the one.
Yep. Cool. Steve, you're
Steve?
number 1. What do you got?
So I really wanted to have something from the last 5 or 8 years, and I came up with this. This is by a French band who are still active called Aqua Surge. It's called La Amitié. And let me see, it's a 5-piece. And what do they play? We're opening up. This record, by the way, managed to come out on Arista. I don't know if you can see like the little Arista logo.
Oh,
Wow.
Which means that it was in print for about a month and a half. So it's keyboard player, bass player, drummer, reed player, and something else. I don't remember. They don't list it who plays what on the inside. And it's kind of a, I guess, it's a very much a song album, which is, you know, and I don't really listen to tons of song albums, but it's a song album. And when it came out, I heard it and it really struck me. And it just, what it kind of struck me as is, you know, if Soft Machine Volume 2, which was very much a song album, but also very progressive, was done by a bunch of young French people who are influenced by the things that young musicians are influenced by, but were also trying to push the envelope of being a song band, you might have Aqua Surge. So, and you can't buy the CD anymore. You can listen to it on Bandcamp or buy it on Bandcamp. You know, it streams, but yeah, the CD was, you know, Arista put it out for 5 weeks or something like that.
Came and went.
Came and went.
Yep. Cool.
wow.
That tells you what Steve picking you as his number 1 means to the world at large.
Yeah, but there's no correlation between one and the
Oh,
other.
there's a lot of correlation, Luis.
That's bullshit.
I'm the Black Death of music.
No, you're not. I owe you a huge debt because you've helped me discover a lot of bullshit. So,
well, and maybe you're the right-hand man of the Black Death of music.
Okay, I'll take that, but I'm still. I'll take it. So many cool records you put out. Come on.
All right, my number 1. I had 2 of the albums from this band on hand just in case because I had a feeling someone else was going to possibly pick one or both of them, and I was absolutely correct. So I'm going to go with Storia di un Minuto from PF. Premiati Fonerio Marconi. You know, that or Pero Nemico. I love them both just about equally. I kind of agree with Ken. I'm usually tilts to Pero Nemico just a little bit. I think the songs are just a little bit catchier on that album. But man, you can't go wrong with either one of them for all the reasons you guys have already said. All the lovely keyboards and the Hammond and the Melotron and the Moogs and the acoustic and electric guitars, the dreamy vocals, just great stuff. Such an important band. in progressive rock history that I don't think get enough credit. And
early, if I remember, I mean, I should, you know, I'd have to look it up on the computer. I mean, isn't that album from like, wasn't it recorded? I think it was in January 1970, and maybe Pero No Mico is December of 1970 or January of 71. It's
71.
yeah, I think it was 71. But
Both, I think it's 71.
They're both 71.
that's still early though. That's
It's
like
still early. Yeah. No, it's still that's still early.
Originally, they were like a beat psych band called Equelli, and I'm sure I'm killing the pronunciation. Everybody in Italy is just like, you know, it's gonna send me hate mail. But they were a beat psych band, and then they evolved into the, you know, Premiata Fornaria Marconi.
Yeah.
And so I think they were both recorded in 71.
Okay. But like one of them is then the first one is like January of 71. I mean, I remember being surprised because my vinyl versions have the date on the label, like recorded. And it's like, I remember being like, this is pretty sophisticated for this early.
You know, if you think about it, really, like while I was saying they're influenced by Genesis and King Crimson.
I mean, Genesis weren't doing that in 71.
71, that, you know, it's not like they picked up Trespass and said, hey, these guys are onto something.
Yeah, no, I mean, 71's really, you know, I mean, King Crimson had done it within the Court of the Crimson King.
Right.
But everybody else was kind of a little bit later.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, that's one of the things about
is Trespass 72?
No.
This record says 1972. BG recording.
Well, but that's when it came out. That's when it came out.
Maybe it was recorded.
That's the thing. The Italian scene really kind of developed
contemporaneously
with the English scene to some degree.
Yes.
It was obviously the crossover, but they always said that, like, you know, the English bands used to tour through Italy, you know, like Van de Graaff and Genesis and all. They were huge there. Yep. And they always said, like, Gabriel got the whole concept of the masks and the makeup from Osana, playing with Osana. And Lino Veretti, he used to paint his face and do all this stuff, and next thing you know, Gabriel was doing it. So yeah, I mean, so yeah, that Italian scene was very fertile scene.
Yes, indeed.
I'll tell you one thing that is for sure 100% Gabriel. I don't know any Italian who would willingly shave the center of his head. That goes against their hopes.
They probably held him down and they said, "Hey, Pete, we got a great idea. Can I throw in an honorable mention?" And you'll
have everybody throw one honorable mention out real quick because I got to run to another taping. But
no, I'll do it quick.
Go ahead, Ken. What do you got?
I won't go. Le Orme.
Woo-woo!
Filona y Sirona, not to be confused with Filona and Sirona, where again they re-recorded it in English and Peter Hamill wrote the lyrics, and it kind of sucky. So you got to get the Italian version. They were a trio at this point. They weren't as good when they became a quartet. Kind of bombastic, sort of ELP-ish. The Melotron and stuff. It's a concept album about two planets at war, and it just builds and builds and builds. And the reason I didn't put it in my top 5 specifically is because I felt the first side was a little bit weaker compared to the second side. It just builds to this incredible climax.
Good stuff, though. Great album.
Yeah.
Louis, you got any honorable mention?
Well, I mean, people already mentioned 2 of the classics. I will say, if I want to mention something recent that is in a foreign language that I think is really kick-ass, which is kind of close to my heart because I do also like metal, I think In Cauda Venenum from Opeth, the Swedish. This is a kick-ass record. This is kick-ass through and through, and I love this album. So yeah, I understand it wasn't made in the 70s. I don't give 2 shits. This is a great record. I love it. So I want to mention this because most prog fans think Opeth, you know, Cookie Monster vocals, whatever, they run to the hills. This is a prog album. It's damn good. This is great.
Good choice. Steve, you got a spare one to throw out?
Nope.
No. All right. I will throw out Semiramis, another Italian classic. And how about the first Celeste, Principe de un
First Celeste is
beautiful.
lovely.
But you see, that's what we're going back to Italy, right?
Everything's back to
First
Italy.
Celeste is First Celeste is really lovely.
Another cool one I had was from another Canadian one, Etc. is another really good one.
Oh yeah,
that was good. Yeah, that was like Gentle Giant, really.
Yeah, basically, that's why I love Gentle Giant. So for me, that was like cool.
I also had this guy, Ange, the Graveyard of the Harlequins, but
that's my favorite Ange album. Yeah,
but again, this is, you know, if people tell you, man, this singer blows, it's kind of hard to say no. You have to let it grow, right? You just have to.
Yeah,
and especially when your first contact
are both two French bands that are very similar. It's like it took me a while to get used to those vocals.
Yeah,
so,
all those bands, they're very dramatic, you know.
That concert they played at Nearfest where the guy had that leash, that whole scene, you know, that's not for everybody, right? That's not gonna go across well. But this is a great record. Also, I mean, if you give it a chance, this is good, you know.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that wraps it up, everybody. So you've got some really cool picks of non-English language prog albums, past, present, and future. I want to thank everybody here for contributing and putting together a list and agonizing over this. I think a couple of us certainly did, right? This was pretty tough. So thanks everybody for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Make sure you go check out Laser's Edge, Wayside and Cuneiform Records, Sonus Umbra. Give everybody some love here on the panel. And for Luis Nasser, Steve Feigenbaum, and Ken Golden, I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody.
bye.